photograph your insides.
Yeah, she couldn't get it
You
in.
couldn't get it down.
That's too bad.
Go ahead and try and swallow your camera. Even on your iPhone.
That would be tough.
Oh, the camera.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. My name is John Drew, Providence City Mayor. This is Wednesday, September 15th, 6 p.m. All of our council members are present: Beck, Smith, Seeley, Kirk, and Halson. And we will go ahead with Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an opening remark or prayer offered by a member of the audience or city council. So let's go ahead and start with this. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone like to offer a prayer of thought for this evening before we get started?
I have a thought I'd share.
Please.
Okay.
Councilmember Paulson would like to offer a thought. Go ahead.
This was, we September 11th obviously was Saturday Day to reflect. This is something one of my team members had written on social media, and it just I found it really touching, and I appreciate the message. Her name's Brooke Bowen, by the way, so we can give her credit for this. She says, "We will always remember September 11th, 2001. The terrible tragedies that occurred will always be in our hearts and minds." Excuse me. "But let us also remember September 12th, 2001, the day stores ran out of American flags to sell because they were being flown everywhere. The day that every person from every corner of the world came together to unite and overcome a great sadness with love, support, and kindness. The day that we all gained a greater understanding of freedom and independence. The day we knew the terror they tried to bring us would never break us. We will never forget the lives that were given 20 years ago today and the tragedy that occurred. But let us also never forget the greater appreciation for love, kindness, unity, and the freedom we celebrate." So I'd like to offer that thought, that we embrace within our city love, kindness, unity, and the freedom that unites us.
Thank you for sharing that. I think all of us probably remember where we were and what we were doing on September 11th, 10 years ago. Anyone want to share that? I was in downtown Oakland, California, and I was in a health club, and they didn't have flat screens back then. The TVs were on, and there were a bunch of people standing around. I'm looking up there, and I go up there, and obviously the TV was focused on the Twin Towers because one of them had already been hit, and I was standing there watching as the second tower got hit, and that was quite shocking. And I just said, and it obviously wasn't an accident. And so I said, "We're at war." I said, "Our country is now at war." It was true. Anyone else want to share? Oh, and I went to a Radio Shack in downtown Oakland, and I got one of these portable ones that I clipped on my belt. I listened to news all day, then walked around. Right?
I was down in the basement of the old Providence City office, and somebody said the Twin Towers had been hit by one of the towers had been hit by a plane, and we tried to get as much information as we could. We were dashing all over the place trying to see what had happened, and it didn't take very long to realize that we were under attack, that it was not an accident, that we were under attack. And at that time, your heart just sank for those people who were there, and we were halfway angry, wanting to have those who were held accountable for what they'd done. It was a time of confusion, but yet it was very humbling that it was on our soil. It was an attack on our soil.
Anyone else?
I was actually abroad. I was sailing a tall ship from Europe to the United States. I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when the Twin Towers were hit. And we got news from shortwave radio from the BBC about what happened, but I didn't see any pictures or images or anything until probably 2 weeks later when we ported in Bermuda. But we were the first ship allowed into New York Harbor after 9/11. We anchored next to the Statue of Liberty and the smoke was still rising from the city a month later. And just walking through the city and seeing so many people almost dazed, just handing out flyers, looking for their loved ones several weeks later.
Sure, I'll share. I was a grad student and my roommate at the time, her dad had an office with more than 20 employees in one of the towers. And so she got a call from her mother before any of us were awake that the tower had been hit. So we didn't have TV in our apartment, but we ran straight across the street and watched. And my boss at the time felt it was historical. And so I went into work and he sent us all right back home just to watch. He felt like it was not appropriate to be at work that day.
I had just moved from there a few weeks before. I lived right in New Jersey. I could see the lights of New York City at night from my home. And I just moved back. And one of my husband's family members was on one of the airplanes that was hijacked.
What were you, Josh?
I was driving to college as well, listening to the radio. And got into class, and then class was excused, so I went home and watched some TV. And you know, not the funny, but the eerie thing is, you know, when the first tower fell, you kind of sat there knowing that the second tower was going to fall, you know, for 20, 30 minutes, just like it's only a matter of time, you know. But I've since been back there, and you know, it's a different place now. And I think, like that thought says, we can remember that, but we can use that to kind of unite us and have us move forward. And I think our country has done that at better times than others. But hopefully we can remember that and try to be our best selves and our best communities, our best country that we can.
And I might make one more comment.
Sure.
Being in the building industry, those towers perform better than they were constructed to perform. They had planned that any fire in those towers, fire could be put out within 2 hours. There was a 2-hour fire rated construction throughout. The planes actually knocked a lot of the fire protection off the beams and off of the steel uprights and so forth. And they actually performed for a good 2 hours, and each one of them. And so it's amazing at the time they were constructed, when the fire inspector comes around and says, you need to fire protect those beams, you need to do this, there's a reason for it, because it saves lives. Yeah, a lot of people lost their lives, but that was, no one anticipated that type of fuel loading, that type of heat, that type of overall. I mean, it was burning several floors. Had it possibly been one floor, they would have taken care of it. It would have never gone down. Those buildings outperformed what they had been designed to. Now, everything is 4-hour construction.
Beams melted.
Yeah, the beams gave way, and
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. First on the agenda, we have a fairly light agenda tonight. Is approval of the minutes. Providence City Council will consider for approval the minutes of August 18th, 2021 council meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Well, motion from Councilmember Kirk. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Councilmember Steph. Further discussion, just want to mention there. I asked Tyler before we got started, who did the minutes, and it used to be Jesse, and of course he's moved on. He's going back east to graduate school. Jesse started out trying to get every exact word that was spoken, which means he probably had to spend days preparing them. He was learned to and was instructed to abbreviate. He got really good at it. Rarely did we find an exception that we. I asked Tyler about this version, and a couple things I noticed. First of all, there's a timestamp on there, which I think is really useful. But the other thing is the style in which it's written is different. It's kind of in an active voice, I would call it, manner of writing. And he just asked me if I had a problem with it. I said, well, I don't. I said, but I will ask the council if they've noticed it, what they think about it. But it's kind of I was there, and council member Seeley says this rather than said past tense, it's kind of active voice. So anyway, it's a change and it's different. Just thought I'd ask what you council members thought about it, if you had a chance to weigh in on that or notice that.
Oh, I totally noticed, but I
It's fine.
think it's neutral.
I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, it's
Change that.
just a different tense than we're used to, but I think present tense is
I
fine.
like Janelle said, I like the
I love the
timestamp.
timestamp. Well done.
All right. Any corrections, changes, additions? I didn't see any. I call for a motion to approve the minutes. All in favor of approving the minutes of August 18th? Signify by saying aye.
I
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain just because I wasn't present, but I went back and listened to the key parts, but not the entire thing.
Okay, one abstention and 4 voted yay. All right. We don't have any public hearings, no land use development items, which is really different. We do have public comments. I will just mention that what we ask the public to do is comment on items that are not on the agenda. If there are items on the agenda, it's been our practice to invite public comment and engage in dialogue with the council. So if you have any comments on any of the other business items, please hold those comments until we get to those agenda items. In the meantime, I'll open the floor for public comments on any other issue that any member of the public would like to speak on. If you're interested in speaking, raise your hand. I'll recognize you. Please come to the podium. Our official record of the council meeting is the audio record. So we ask people to state their name. Anyone from the audience like to speak? Like to be heard? Yes, sir. On it.
I wasn't sure if I had floor to speak. My name is Jonathan Williams. I'm not a resident of Providence City, but I am a representative for Visionary Homes and the Complete Vineyard for Providence Political Issue Committee, which is a upcoming topic. So Proposition 1 on the municipal ballot. Is it okay if I share a brief message? Sure. So primarily, I wanted to come here tonight to express gratitude to the City Council, Mayor, Planning Commission, and other city officials who run such a fantastic city and do so much to improve the lives of the citizens of Providence. My opinion and experience is that Providence is one of the most wonderful places to live. And then as a member and representative for the Political Issue Committee, which is running a campaign for Proposition 1 to educate the good citizens of Providence on the benefits of voting for Proposition 1. I just quickly wanted to state some of our efforts and be available if you had questions or comments. So in regards to Proposition 1, which is a ballot item that is coming up, which is the vote, as I'm sure you're aware, to uphold an ordinance that was passed in 2019 to annex in a portion of the vineyard community in Providence for development and construction and assignment of the life cycle residential zone. So Proposition voting for is to uphold that ordinance. I'm sure that we're all aware of that. So we are running it's a campaign, but a public education campaign, really to establish what the facts are about the vineyard community, really that there's no rentals that are in the community, no apartments or anything like that, but it is a multi-home type community that we're building, intended to really make housing available at attainable prices. And I think that that is the biggest benefit for the vineyard community to Providence. I know the issue started in 2019. Well, the topic started in early 2019. But one of the benefits to that, although it has taken a long time to get to ballot, is really in the southern phase of the vineyard community. We've been able to build out the southern phase and show off the beautiful design and how well that the development design can transition and belong inside of Providence City. So if you were to visit the vineyard community, you could see that there's ample and beautiful landscaping transition from the roadways into single family homes that border the outside of the community. And then that blends well to the higher density townhomes and condos that are inside the community. So we're going forward, and we're holding a few different events, so we have a few different resources that the public can get more information about Proposition 1 or the 4 Proposition 1 efforts that we have. Mainly, we set up a website for prop1.com, and then we will hold a number of, I don't want to call them town hall meetings. I don't know what that really facilitates, but we are going to hold 6 hybrid, virtual, and in-person public information meetings at our model home, so that residents can learn more about the community, the future design that we intend to build if we are successful or if Proposition 1 passes. And then we do plan to hold a large open house on October 2nd in the community. Really, our intention is to show off the beautiful vineyard community, how it has benefited the lives of the homeowners who have purchased and are living there, in hopes that the citizens of Providence City can really see and feel the benefit and value that vineyard adds to Providence City. So mainly, besides expressing gratitude and recognizing the public servants, city council, mayor, and those involved in helping bring our community and all of Providence to the incredible place to live that it is, stating our campaign efforts and stating how we will be available to the public in an educational campaign method. Those are my main priorities for tonight. So, yeah.
Council, any questions?
I've got a related question, maybe for Ryan, if that's okay. Ryan, my understanding is city staff cannot, they're neutral regarding the referendum or their position. Is that accurate?
I would say that all city staff have the same constitutional right to speak if they'd like.
Okay.
As the city manager, my ethics would be neutral. So you will see that the lead on my end is a neutral position, because as a city manager, I take a neutral position in those, and my position is that of the majority of the council.
Well, okay, my follow-up was.
But I won't direct staff to have an opinion.
Yeah, understood. My follow-up question to that is, because members of the city council are, I don't know if they're quasi-city employees, if it kind of functions that way a little bit. Are members of the city council, are they permitted to take a public position regarding the referendum or Prop 1? Not an ethical issue, but are they, just from a constitutional standpoint? I mean,
I think you have a freedom of speech item, but I would be cautious in the in how that is done, if you are putting your title and name to it, making sure that it's that you've portrayed accurately from what position you're taking.
Okay.
So you're not
So
representing
follow-up
the
question is,
council as a whole.
I realize it gives Joshua Paulson with Providence. Can I, as Carrie Kirk of, I can't as Carrie Kirk. If I was Carrie
You probably can't just
Could I,
carry.
as Carrie Kirk of City Council, am I permitted to do that?
I
You
don't
know,
know
if there's a
that-
legal basis for that.
I'd have to look at legal one if you sign it. As far as, I don't think you can say the city council takes this position.
I realize I can't
Right.
say that.
Okay.
But
And that's
I
the
can't
line
really
I'm,
disassociate my title from my name. You know?
right. You are a political figure and have a political right to have a freedom of speech.
By
so-
nature, someone who's an elected official is a political person. And as part of their job, it's to state their opinion. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's
just
what
wondered,
we
because
all
I
do.
heard city staff supposed to be neutral. I had heard that somewhere. but I
So-
don't know if that's true.
If we still had on the council, now this is March of 2019, I was mayor and I wasn't voting. I didn't vote, it was unanimous vote. But if one of those council members was still on the council, as a council member and still an elected official, they could be asked to state why they voted the way they voted. They would be expressing their opinion, so. So if your neighbor asks you what your thoughts are on this, there's no reason why a council member can't express their opinion.
Ty is more up to date on the city code than I am, but back in 2019, when this first came about, the code was a little bit different. And the city was quite restricted in what it can and can't do during that. So that's why originally, yes, we had to be as neutral as possible because of the way the state code was written. Now, I know they've made some changes in that referendum law, but I haven't kept up like Ty has.
So, I mean, as I mentioned, our last two meetings, council did have priority in terms of the voter information pamphlet that we'll be sending out in a couple of weeks to make comments or arguments, which I never received any, but we can only have one argument for, one argument against, and rebuttal to each. And we got some good ones, I think, from our residents. So, yeah, and like you said, the council was different 2 years ago. You know, you guys weren't the ones that voted on other than mayor.
So
So
Tyler, what's changed? I mean, the way it was described.
I don't know about the 2019 one. I'm just referencing today's
By-
statute.
The city attorney at the time said the city was prohibited from stating the city's official position. The city doesn't have it.
We would take it the council has what they did. But I would say that the spending of city funds, so I would separate and not agenda items. We got to be careful because it's a public comment item. But at that point, the city can't expend funds. And it was a funds and a city, but you can't restrict staff or an individual member to have an opinion. So anyway, but
Council's opinion was clear. I mean, it was a unanimous vote for it. So I mean, that was obvious. I do believe that we were told and made it very clear that we cannot and state our opinion.
as an individual, yep.
So do you work for Visionary or are they contracted with you to run the campaign?
I'm employed by Visionary Homes.
Like marketing?
So over marketing, sales leadership, communication, and community outreach. Mouthful, but marketing is one of the items that I
And then
do.
do you have your plan for the next phase if Prop 1 passes? Do you have that? Where can you look that up?
Yeah, I would say the most accurate plan of what we intend or hope to build for the northern phase is hosted on forprop1.com.
Okay.
We do have it on our Visionary Homes website. For Prop 1 has that, and that's what the caveat, as I'm sure we all know and understand, is that's the proposed. I mean, there's other iterations as we go through the actual planning phase of that, but it does represent the product type, lot sizes, and proposed amenities that we hope to build. If Prop 1 is voted for or upheld, the decision's upheld.
I have a question. So how's it been received? Are people interested in this type of thing? Are people more interested in the condos? Are they selling the individual homes? Tell us how that is working. And be straightforward with it.
I can't even tell you, Brent. Like they're all sold out. Like I've even tried to get buyers in there, and I can't.
Yeah, I was going to similar response from a Visionary Homes employee and also over sales and marketing. The desire to live in Vineyard is great. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think a lot of people really enjoy that type of development and are hopeful and love the green space, love the shared amenities, especially the ones that will come in the next phase. One of the main points that makes Vineyard so desirable, though, and the condos and townhomes specifically, is price point. As we all know, home prices have gone up so fast over the last 18 to 24 months, but especially the last 12 months. I was looking at a report yesterday that in Cache Valley alone, I think we're up 37% on average for home prices. And so home prices are really going to a place where affordability is the real issue. I mean, it's not whether they want to buy a home or not, whether they want to buy a condo townhome. People say no yard maintenance or not. We're really getting to the point that home ownership is almost unattainable for a lot of people. And those are the families and others that we see that the condos and townhomes is really serving that demographic. So for that alone, we feel that the Vineyard community is a great fit for Providence. Is there's a lot of things that we've talked about internally, but one of the biggest things is if we want people to enjoy homeownership or be able to buy a home, or even if we want, like myself or your kids or that, to be able to purchase homes, condos and townhomes, or well-designed communities that can mix that into it appropriately, blending with the neighborhoods around them. That's the viable solution for affordable, or it's hard to say. And, I kind of say this almost kind of with a little ribbing, but I call it attainable homeownership, because affordable homeownership comes with definitions of, public servants or teachers or, police officers, of who can afford a home. And even the condos and townhomes of almost what we could build may not fit into that. So we call it attainable homeownership. But being able to sell this and having interest lists of people backed up for the condos, the townhomes, and the single family homes, the interest is significant. And like I said, I think the price point for that is a contributing factor, and the housing inventory is a contributing factor too. I think, and maybe this might be interpreting your question, and if you have another question too, I don't want to go too long. But you asked, how's the reception of this? And immediately I was thinking of how's the reception of the campaign or the Proposition 1. And so far the feedback has been very limited. So I sincerely don't know, whether people are passionately for or against. And you guys or the city may have heard, we did send out an initial letter that I think hit the mailboxes this week. So people may have been calling the city asking questions. I've had a really limited reach out, people reaching out to us about it. So being able to sell the community, people living there, they love it. We have interest lists. I think part of that is low inventory everywhere. Houses just aren't available or attainable or affordable. But then on Proposition 1, I'm not sure how much support is for or against it. So does that
I
answer your
also want to
question?
remind
Yeah.
everybody that part of the reason that this worked so well for our city, because I know, anyway, was we got a crossing that, Spring Creek crossing out of it. And then I find myself driving north and turning left and heading out of town sometimes that way off of 3rd East. Surprised that really a lot of those community members that live east of there, I know they're driving down through there, and it has created, good traffic flow to get people out of town on that road. More so than I realized. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I still have some other issues with the community, but I'll touch base with Dallas.
I just had one quick question. What percentage of the community has been built as compared to what is yet to be built?
This is not an official percentage, and I wish I had the statistics for you exactly.
That's fine.
But land developed, I believe we have 17 acres on the south end. And then this northern portion is about 22 acres, just over 22 acres. And as far as the southern portion that was previously approved, I would say we're 70% of the way actually built and individuals living in it. Unofficially, but that's probably a very good ballpark number for it.
Are you guys looking to the west piece too?
Not to my knowledge. Yeah. Others in the company who focus on land acquisition may, but I usually well read into that, and I haven't heard much of anything, so I couldn't represent one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
You said that there's no rentals there. So does your CCNRs or HOA, does that restrict how many units people could actually rent out? Because I know you're saying no rentals there means that you don't have visionary owned apartment buildings that are designed to be strictly rentals, but that doesn't mean that the townhomes and other homes would not be income like investment properties.
Right. I believe that the condos are the only product type that we do have a certain limitation, and that mainly, it does not come from the CCNRs. That mainly comes from the financing or mortgages that make it available to purchase those.
But wait a minute, you guys don't qualify for FHA over there. That is the only thing that limits that. That's one thing I wish Visionary would get going, because that opens that up to a lot of first-time home buyers, because first-time home buyers cannot buy condos.
Are you saying that
Unless-
first times home buyers
Unless
with an FHA loan?
with an FHA loan, which is 90% of the first-time home buyers, they can't buy your condos.
I wasn't aware of that. I do know that we have a lot of first-time home buyers, not to
With probably with down payment, but I'm just saying, like, if it's attainable, and again, this is I need to talk to them. I've already tried to talk myself blue in the face. I wish they would move forward and get it FHA approved, so that we literally could provide some home ownership to a lot of people that really need it through FHA.
Yeah. And I know there's quite a few mortgage programs available. FHA usually is the most popular because it allows a 3.5% down and many other variations inside of that. And there's even mortgage products available for grants or no down payment assistance as well. I don't know specifically what this does or not qualify for. I do know that there's quite a few individuals purchasing even with mortgages that are not FHA, that don't require even 5 or 10%, a traditional mortgage. So there are programs that fit more of that, lower income or first time home buyer to be able to purchase the townhomes and condos. But if that's information that I could put together and provide for the council as a benefit, and I know that you've had long ongoing conversations about this specifically, but I would love to, as an item of, is to work on that. Absolutely. But I do know that there are
I
mortgage
think it just
options that
sits.
fit that.
Yeah, I think it's just been kind of put on the back burner.
Yeah.
which is too bad.
Yeah, I'll absolutely take note of that and make sure that the comment is heard and that we can react to it.
The other thing, I had an internet conversation with someone who did call you, and she was told that LCR, the life cycle residential zone, isn't an option in Providence anymore, but it actually is. So I just want to make sure that as you're communicating with people, that accurate information is given. And I had actually Scarlett today give me a rundown of the history of LCR and where it's at. And so I just want to make sure that you're aware that.
I appreciate that. That was an interesting conversation, and I know exactly who you're talking about. I believe the way that it came about is that she called the city and had heard that it had been canceled in 2020. But I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know her. I just want to make sure that accurate information is communicated.
I think the facts are, Scarlett, correct me if I'm wrong. I know the planning commission for a while kind of froze it and said, we don't want to approve other things unofficially. And I believe the label was, I think it's mixed residential now or something. Has the label been changed? No, not yet.
Yeah, I looked up the zoning definition.
Conversation about changing the label at some point.
We kind of have to be careful because we don't have a specific agenda item that we can be discussing, but
Let's move on.
I will give you the fact really quick. We did talk about some revisions, but in about March of 2020 or May of 2020, it was decided that it probably wasn't the appropriate time to be revising anything. So the ordinance that's in the city code is still standing, it is still active, and it is still life cycle residential.
Sorry.
So this gentleman offered to answer any questions. Obviously, you can't answer questions about our city code, and as Scarlett mentioned, they're not on the agenda, but I do have a question. In March of 2019, the council was looking at a plan for the whole development, all 3 lots. In fact, there was another parcel involved, which was removed for a different reason. Is that plan still where Visionary is going from March of 2019, 2.5 years ago?
So if you go online, it's right here.
Yeah, my assumption,
idea.
without being able to reference the plan that you were looking at in March of 2019, but my assumption is that it's the same. Since the petition and the decision was deferred to the municipal election, my understanding and experience within Visionary Homes is that we have not done any additional planning or plans beyond that. So it would be to pick up from there, work through the planning commission for, preliminary plat and through a final plan. If there are additional plans, it would include more walking trails or be more descriptive on what the plan that is on the website shows.
So I haven't been in the design center. I go by there all the time, but
In Wellsville?
is there, huh?
In Wellsville?
No, here at Visionary, here in the vineyards.
The model.
Okay.
Is there a map of the plan to develop the other 2 parcels? So if people stop by there and ask questions, say, what is it, what is Visionary's plan for the rest of these other 2 parcels? Is it there for them to see?
Yeah, to my knowledge, and I ordered and installed most of the decor. So unless there's something printed like what would be on here, which our intention was to hold back that information so that we don't over-represent or represent something that was on hold. The only items that we put onto the wall is that southern phase or the lots that are available to sell. So just really focus on what's now. Have we discussed amenities? Haven't promised exactly what they would look like, but our intention is, whether we're successful with Proposition 1 or not, still offer the amenities, whether they're more or less of what we've promised.
So when you have these events that you described, will you have that available? So, I mean, people are going to say, well, there's 2 parcels here, 22 acres. What's the rest of it going to look like? Will they see that conceptual plan?
Correct. Yeah. And even if you go to the forprop1.com website, which we're using as an information warehouse, so to speak. That's probably the wrong definition, but it has that map with the description of this is the vision, and hopefully with the disclaimer that's clear enough as this is proposed. If Proposition 1 is voted, if the ordinance is upheld.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank
Appreciate
for
you being here.
clarification.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. No public hearing, no land use development items, agreements, contracts, bid awards. Item number 2, lawn care bids. Providence City Council will discuss, review, and may take action on bids the Providence City lawn care needs. Brian, the contract is expiring. That's been how long? How many years?
I think it was a 5-year contract.
5 years. That's what it's on. Okay.
Um,
There's nothing in the packet here.
the bids were on Tuesday. So we had it bid before the council, but it wasn't ready for including in the packet. I'll show you here. The bids came in. We received 3 bids. It came as a per week and a total for the season, which is 30 weeks is what we kind of expect there. Stickman Lawn Care was the low at $2,575 per week. And they are our current provider. They've been doing it for the last 5 years, and we would, as a staff, we recommend that we proceed with that award to the low bid and to somebody we have good current experience with.
So they only do like our parks, the cemetery, right?
They do, yes, park, cemetery. There
Do they
is
do this out here in front of the city offices?
not the city offices, the city, because it's its own HOA, it's done through an HOA here. So it's not independent for us. We don't own or take care of the property here. It's through the
Can we
HOA.
hire them? Because I know staff is overwhelmed. I understand that. I've talked to staff too. I get it. I'm not complaining. Can we hire them to do some extra things like weed the roundabouts?
We could look at those items. We could look at those items. At this point, there is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 different locations that they do.
And I'm just saying, like, if staff can't do it, then we need to outsource to someone else.
Sure.
And like, thank you for trimming the weeds on 10th South at the retention pond finally. They were so high. But was that city staff that did that, or would that be something we could outsource also so that we, and it's in our nuisance ordinance later. We're going to talk about changing the nuisance ordinance, and it talks about weeds, but if we can't get to it because you guys are so busy and understaffed, can we outsource that?
We certainly could, but when it comes to retention ponds, most of those aren't grass. We only have 2 out of about 60. I don't know. We have a lot of different ponds out there, retention and detention, and different types of stormwater facilities, and we've tried to keep all that in house and take care of those. And now, granted, you're right. We have a lot on our plate, minimal staff, and a lot of that is weed whacker type duty because it's weeds. Other than 2 ponds, which the 2 ponds that are grass are
part of the contract.
So we have the professionals take care of the stuff that is been, groomed and aesthetically created to take that extra effort for water and lawn care and pesticides and fertilizers. The weed ponds, we've got the staff usually, it's once or twice a year, and stepping it up to 3 to 4 times a year just takes more time. So if there's certain locations that make sense to, because of their location, like a busy corner like that one, we could our plan is to ultimately beautify that location. And once that happens, I can see throwing it on this contract. And it was our intent last year to try to begin the process of that particular corner you're referring to. And we couldn't get anybody that was interested in the retaining walls that would be on that east side. on that property line. And so there's a shortage of contractors slash concrete world's a difficult one right now. And so that got put on the back burner.
I just
And
think it would be
there's
worth
the other-
asking if we can't do it and keep up on it, and that needs to be paid way more attention to.
The roundabout.
No, the on 10 South, like I'm saying, twice a year, I don't think it's gonna cut it for get weed whacking up there. So if we can't do it, I think we need to maybe see if these guys can do it.
We talked to them about additive items and we visited with that in our open, the pre-bid meeting, and we visited with that at all of them. They were all seemed to be open and willing to take on additional items as we go there. So we'll evaluate that as we finish up and get on to the new contract, so we can evaluate that. But at this point, we would recommend proceeding with the low bid and that, and proceeding there. So that's what we'd ask the council to proceed with.
General per hour rate anywhere in that. As you extend it to other ponds and so forth, you think it would go on, or would they just bid it, the whole thing?
They would kind of bid that additional work. We would work with them to bid that portion of the additional work. Some of the things that we're looking at is if we finish a park, if we finish that beautification, if we finish the Alma Lenhart Park, if we can purchase other park properties that we're working on, if we can accomplish that, we'd add those. But it would be kind of a bid for that one, because it's different for what type of equipment they have to use. So it's steep, and we have in our budget this year to continue. I mean, we carried that over beautification last year. We didn't have enough that we felt like it could work. We beefed it up. We have some more in this year. We haven't got that piece done, but we're clearly looking at what we can do there. We're working with Stokes Nature Center on the Jays Well beautification to see if we can't get something there. We're working on those, but there is a contractor limit to some of our projects. So, but we are working forward.
Carrie and I, we have like 8 kids you could recruit to work on some of those places.
They're not very good workers.
Never is.
Actually, Josh's are.
I'll add 6 more.
Pay it by the week.
Yeah, they don't care.
I've had 4 I could add. So
I used to pay the kids in the neighborhood by the week. I told them, what was it? I think
Popsicles.
I'd give them popsicles for
And they'd
10
all
for
sit
10
on his
weeks they
front
pulled, and they
porch
came over to my
waiting.
house every day and cleaned me out of popsicles. I had to stop it.
Let me tell you, when you get empty nesters, who doesn't? It isn't the kids, they don't come back. They got their own to do.
Yeah, well, the kids at my house never did.
wow, I would never say that in a public hearing.
Kids aren't watching this
On
video.
record.
Would you make sure that's in the minutes?
He's always like, Carrie, quit talking.
So can we, Mayor, can we go ahead and make a motion?
Yeah.
Sure.
I make a
Unless there's any
motion.
other questions on it.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve, yeah, I can't even read it.
Stickman lawn care.
Stickman Lawn Care for the lawn care bid.
Motion from council member, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from council member Smith. I just have one question, Ron. In the past, we've had issues with some of the contractors we've had, and I've heard you over the years complain about them. And I have to ask about the job Stickman is doing since they've been here.
I've been told that Stickman, and this is, Shane's over the parks, and he has been very impressed with Stickman and all the extra direction that he's given him, and he hasn't complained, and he's done a great job. And so he's very happy with Stickman's.
Good to hear. Good to know. On that note, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Is this bid for 5 years also?
No, it's for a 3-year with 3-year additional extension. So it can be extended at 3-year intervals, but it's a 3-year contract at this point.
favor?
I,
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Item 3, lawn care spraying bids. Providence City Council will discuss, review, and may take action on bids for Providence City's lawn care spraying fertilizer needs. You want to give us a
Yeah, we bid this out. We went through the different work, invited contractors, and we got one response. It is from the lawn doctor, Chad Norton. And so at that point, we did combine a few other ones together and included some of the other spraying that we would have been doing through our recreation side together into this. And the total for the year is $24,934, which is a fair adjustment increase from the previous contract. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was within what we expected it to be. And so with it being the only one and within reason of our estimation, we would ask for the council to accept that as the contractor to move forward.
Accept the bid for lawn care spraying.
Any discussion first?
I thought we used to have a motion in a second and then discussion. That's my thought. Sorry.
Discuss,
If I spoke
motion,
out
then
there, I
discuss.
apologize.
We have a motion from council members.
I'll second it.
Second, Councilmember Paulson. Further questions?
So you only got one bid back, is that?
That's correct.
is that who had done it previously?
That's
And
correct.
then are they the ones that spray the weeds at Solinger Park baseball fields, or is that staff?
We
You don't know what I'm
We
talking
spray a
about.
lot of weeds, road, shoulders, and retention ponds and such. But yes, they are the ones that take care of all our parks recreation. And until this year, they've kind of been two separate items, two separate bids, and we divided into two, which is part of that inflated part that you put there. But the other part is we added a lot to this particular one when it comes to pesticides and fertilizers and locations for that matter. This one actually has quite a bit of trumped up, I guess. way to put it.
It is the one that we were one contract ahead, but this is the one we are adding and doing that
So
way.
if there's weeds,
So-
it's only.
There
Yes.
you go.
So when you say you beefed it up, does that mean there's gonna be no stinging nettle? That, like you've added a pesticide because.
Yeah, we've added
because
some.
Stinging nettle along the soccer field.
Yeah, there's extra
Really
broadleaf. There's a couple of different treatments and different chemicals. And
I mean, some of it we've timing. I can't guarantee that we'll never have it. So I'm not gonna, yes, it'll be better. That's what we're looking for. Is this will be better? This is where
They
we're
don't take care of the weeds in the roundabout or city staff goes around.
we take care of roadside and some of that.
Roundabouts.
Honestly, like the weeds in the roundabout could be a service project. We're interested or called the city and asked to do one.
Absolutely. If anybody's watching and they'd like to do a service project, we'd be happy to put them to work.
Only this morning, Glory. Because that is not a weed that you're gonna go out and get under control unless it's sprayed in the fall.
Well, you can't see it. All you can see is the tall weeds that go clear up above the shrubs.
Oh, I thought I saw one. Because I have.
That's part of the decoration. It's part of the decoration.
Oh, that's part of it.
Part of the decoration.
It's so pretty.
Whatever we don't spray and kill, just part of the decoration. Well, there you go. There you go.
What the tall ones usually vanish probably on flight.
Those are beautiful. Anyway, thank you so much.
Yes, very-
One of my favorite things.
Morning glory can be killed after the first frost. But other than that, you just see it.
I feel like we've got a motion in a second and one bid, so it's pretty easy for me, but I don't know about others.
We'll call for a vote.
Call for a vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4, Historic Preservation Commission, new board member approval. We have one commission member that resigned recently. So we looking to fill that position. The meeting is one Tuesday a month. And talked to a lot of people, asked for recommendations. Gordon Allred is here tonight, served on the planning commission for just one term or more than one? Okay, I'll let him introduce himself. I talked to Scarlett, and here's how the conversation with Scarlett went. Scarlett said, I probably know more developments and construction and streets and houses around Providence than anybody else. But Gordon knows more people in Providence than anyone else. So that's Gordon. Gordon's a retired history teacher at Mountain Crest. Gordon, you want to come up and introduce yourself? We'll have the council ask you.
History teacher on the historic.
Imagine that.
Bravo, bravo.
I moved to Providence over 30 years ago. I lived in a tire home, Jess and Rhoda, on the corner where lots of other tires lived as well too. We've been happy to be there forever. In terms of, I did a little bit on the planning and zoning. That was delightful. On an older note, I'm the chairman for the First Ward Sauerkraut dinner for every year. Sounds good too. But I'm available on Tuesdays, on the third Tuesdays of the month, and I like the people on the commission. It's a much good time.
So,
I'm ready to make a motion.
council.
That was enough for me.
All right, can I make a motion? Can we have a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve item number 4 and our new member, Gordon Allred, for the Historic Preservation Commission.
Motion from council member Burke. I have a second. Second from council member Smith. Any further discussion? Question? Call for a vote. All in favor of approving Gordon Allred for our Historic Preservation Commission?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Gordon, for being willing to serve. All right, item number 5, Providence City Code, Chapter 4.1, nuisances amendment. City Council will discuss and may consider taking action on moving forward into and drafting amendments to Providence City Code, Chapter 4-1. Nuisances, City Recorder has included a link to the City Code. And also, in 2016, there was an effort to redraft the code at the time. It was discussed by the council. It went nowhere. There was discussion about enforcement, and I think that was the hangup. I'm reintroducing that version of it, and if you get the right version of it and you go to master document in Microsoft Word, you can see all of the edits, which are quite extensive. If you can't see it, let me know. Or let Tyler know. It's you just have to click that in Word. I think there's some things missing in my opinion. I've looked at some other city codes, and even when I look at other city codes, there's a gap, and it's kind of what is the path if there's a nuisance determined? Who determines it? Where does that process go from there? And I think part of this process is policies for the staff to follow, and specifically, it would probably be a decision tree that someone could see and say, well, once something's declared a nuisance, who does the declaration? Is there something that happens before that? Is there a warning? If someone declared a nuisance, is there an appeal process, so on and so forth? You know, where does this ultimately go? So anyway, I'm asking for direction from the council where you want to go with this. Logan City is very specific on some things, but I think there's some gaps in it. But I was going to research other city codes on nuisances and see what they have to say, and come back to the council with some options on what I would call different subsections or different sub-issues to the whole nuisance issue. I've had feedback from 2 council members who said, yes, we need to discuss nuisances. We need to do something about improving our city. So that's where I'm at.
I still don't understand how we're going to enforce besides send a letter.
So how we're going to enforce is up to the council. What I was going to suggest is that I'll say, here's North Logan, here's what they do, here's Hiram, what they do, here's, and I mean, we don't have to pick what they have, but it's just a starting point for us to have a robust discussion about how we're going to go about this. We don't have someone who does code enforcement. I know that Ryan has advertised to fill that position, and the responses he's gotten from the people he's talked to, he felt were not qualified for what we were looking for.
We looked for a code enforcement. We have a staff member that's part of their responsibility, does some code enforcement review with April, but we don't have full-time dedicated just for that. So
she also does stormwater as
sure,
well,
stormwater. Mhm.
besides trying to do some code enforcement.
Correct.
And with the construction climate in our city, a lot of
It's
it's
busy.
chasing down the contractors who are leaving something behind that
Correct.
will be cleaned up after.
Ryan, like, do you have within a long-term staffing and labor plan that you have, whether that's up here or on paper, you have a code enforcement officer on that plan?
Yeah, I think code enforcement, I think one of the issues is, and this code is representative of that, but it's easy to enforce a code of a speed limit because it's well defined, right? If you're over that limit, there's a citation. If you're under that limit, you don't. And so the clearer the council can define what it is, then the easier it is to enforce, because then it becomes clear. The broader it is and the more interpretation is required, the less it can be enforced. That said, generally speaking, you have your law enforcement arm do enforcement because they have the ticket and citation, and that, unless you're giving warnings or certain citations, but then you have to have that come through the court system, and oftentimes it is through your police department that is done.
What I'm hearing you say is, the clarity and definition is good regardless. It sounds like the staffing plan you're proposing is to use the existing law enforcement services that we have to enforce code.
We certainly can, and they're reluctant.
Because I can't have a police officer coming over and right, yeah, you got some, and I even read the code too, and I thought, well, I think I violated that here. I mean, I try to keep a tidy lot, but I looked through it as like, I had some stuff sitting next to my garbage can. It was like, oh, I'll throw it in the garbage can over the next 3 weeks. That's in violation of the code. I don't think a law enforcement officer wants to come over and, interrogate, cuff me and clean it up. So
Right, but law enforcement has different aspects to it as well. I understand that we have a sheriff's department, but keep in mind the animal control doesn't feel the same as a deputy showing up full suited. The animal control is different as well. It's just that it's naturally fit under that arm. That doesn't mean that that's where we have to have it. I would say to the council, the first thing is to make sure that it's clear what is, what isn't, because at that point, then it's a lot easier to enforce.
I agree with that. I'm unfamiliar with an enforcement officer that we have currently besides a sheriff, a deputy, or animal control. And agree, they get totally different types of treatment. Animal control first is delightful. I like just chatting with them. So, but the issue, if it's in the code, I think there's an expectation from residents that might be enforced.
Sure.
And I worry about getting it in the code and not having a way to support that, and residents going, why the heck is this in the code? You're not enforcing it.
Right.
So I totally agree with the definition. I just would like to see the enforcement plan coupled with that. So we're not passing code without the ability to enforce. And I think Christina's probably coming the same way.
So jurisdictions that use a sheriff's deputy or a police officer, the officer is not making the determination and just issuing the citation. So the officer is going to say to the deputy, I'm not here to argue about your needs. You know, you'll have to, the only thing the officer would do is say, here's an appeals process. Now, in other cities, they don't have a police officer, they have a code enforcement officer. There is an appeals process in Logan City. A nuisance determination can be appealed, and the hearing is conducted by the mayor. But like I said, it's up to the council which direction we want to go and how we want to. Josh makes a good point, but what I see in the code that's been rewritten is how do we enforce it? That part is missing from it. Kevin, who was the prosecutor at the time, he said, what we've got written, he said, don't bother issuing a citation because I can't argue the code because it's not clear.
Agreed.
So that's why he took the effort, the city staff made an effort.
Right. And if the
But I think the gap is to Councilmember Paulson's point, it's okay, fine, it's clear, you've done a good job. Now what? You know, how do we enforce it, and what is the process involved? What are the appeals that are open and all of that?
Well, I think it's a great idea to look at it. I'd like to, continually look at our ordinances, and let's fight this one off next. What does that look like, though, in regards to us as a council? Are we helping rewrite it, or is that staff just adding one more thing to your plate? I mean, tell me what that looks like.
Well, it takes good feedback from the council. I mean, at that point, if we don't have good direction from the council, we can spin our wheels a lot in writing a code.
There's a lot of places in Providence I would love to see cleaned up.
Yeah, but my issue with it is I think it's generally written fine. Like I said, I tried to be introspective and say, like, have I accidentally violated, done this? And I don't think I've ever been, Carrie can tell you if I'm an obnoxious neighbor and I don't keep my yard cleaned up, but I've tried not to. I would like to err on the side of the code specifying, repeat infractions. I think that's the issue we're looking at, is people that are unwilling to go ahead and change their behavior, and it's causing a persistent nuisance to the neighborhood. So
One of the part of Logan City's code is that if it's weeds or garbage or whatever, I skim through it. It requires at least 3 neighbors have been impacted by it. So it's not just 2 neighbors don't like each other and complaints ensue and all that. It's takes it a step further so that the neighborhood is considering it unacceptable.
I have worked with Providence City from the fire department stand on weed control here in Providence City, as well as Logan City. And everybody likes to have something they can hang their hat on. If you're going to go to court, if you're going to go to settle this thing, I think there's ways to go about resolving issues without law enforcement, without having to go to court. And if there's issues, and I don't know the best way to do it, but there's some ways that neighbors could get with neighbors. There's ways that things could be resolved. Because if, for instance, if there's a weed lot and we're to enforce it, the code says you cut 50-foot perimeter and you're done. You don't have to cut the fence line. You can't get the fence underneath there. You cut a 50-foot perimeter and you're done. That's what you hang your hat on. Well, somebody cuts a 50-foot perimeter and still leaves the interior weeds. What have they accomplished? It's been a complaint that's been enforced and you're done with it. Because there's no code that says you got to clear cut the whole lot and take care of it. So there's just different issues. Not only that, comes the issue is, well, did you see so-and-so's neighbor a lot down the road, or did you see so-and-so's problem down the road? When you get that one taken care of, come back and talk to me. There's all those sort of things. What is a nuisance to one has to be clearly defined if you're going to enforce it by city ordinance, because different people see nuisances as different things. And I work with Ted. I take my cars to Ted. And when you get done out there, you always take a cloth and you wipe everything down because the steering wheel's greasy. But he's a great mechanic.
So are you talking about on 3200 South?
Yep.
You know that Ted owns the
I do.
service station
I
in
do.
the center of Maine.
I do, and he has another guy running it, a good buddy of his. And the thing of it is Ted's pretty smart, and he has kind of managed to deal with Logan City. There's the other thing, you put in a nuisance ordinance today. That doesn't mean that somebody who's already got a nuisance has to clean it up. Sometimes their grandfather, because it wasn't enforced at the time when you changed the nuisance ordinance. So this you have to be very careful about too. If the ordinance is targeting somebody, there's a good chance it might be grandfathered and you won't be able to deal with it anyway. So there's lots of things when you're thinking about a nuisance ordinance that you have to be very careful with. Nuisance, it's like you said, Ryan. Stop, their speed limit is one thing. You're over, you're under. But a nuisance, that's an interpretive matter of opinion. So it's a hard one.
That grandfather question is interesting. I hadn't thought of that. That's true. At the same time, I think one could legally argue if a new car gets parked in its violation ordinance, that new car is not violated, is not grandfathered. That new old car, whatever it is. So I'm pretty sure in these situations we're dealing with people that are, like I said, it's persistent, behavior that we're concerned with. Not
You don't want him to have cars there, just don't issue him a business license.
But I don't think for this discussion, I'm in favor of looking at it and defining it, making sure it's clearly defined, because I skimmed over it. I mean, we didn't have a ton of time to really look at it, but I would be in favor of making sure it was. Yeah.
And I'd like to see the labor enforcement, but what arm is going to be used to do that and clearly identify that before, at the same time.
Yeah, so can we go ahead and say that
Yeah, it's
move
just
on?
a discussion.
And I don't feel like it needs to target anything in particular. I think that part of having a beautiful city that has value and people want to live in is taking care of nuisances.
So we have a particular residence here in the city that has been repeatedly dealt with by the staff. Just when all of you were speaking, my thought was, if I were a code enforcement officer, what would I do? The first thing I would say if I talked to somebody and they complained, I'd say, have you talked to your neighbor? Well, he's this or that. I'd say, let's go over and talk to him. Let's see if we can work it out. I mean, that's the first thing I would do. We have a particular hard case that's getting worse, and I've heard complaints recently. And the neighbors have all gathered together, and Chad Norton is the bishop, I think it's the third ward in Providence here, and he looks into this fellow's backyard, and but we got resources from the ward, and people donated the big dumpsters. There were 40 or 50 people there on that property cleaning it up one day, and just to help him out. And city did some things to help the guy out with his property, and of course we had all the good intentions. It's repeated, and it's still there. It's still an eyesore, and it's a nuisance in the neighbor's opinion. But that's how I would approach things. At a minimum, somebody would get a warning or an option to remedy before they serve with a notice of violation. And then there would be levels of appeal. So before the deputy shows up, with a bulletproof vest and swagger and all that, I mean, we go through a number of steps. But I think what we're doing is we're changing. How would I put it? I think we're changing the culture of the city is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people to clean up. And I'll tell you what I do. I take the dogs for a walk all the time. You know what I do? In Providence, I pick up trash, especially the construction parts of the city. And I walk for 2-3 hours sometimes. I'll tell you what, I've walked through other cities here in Cache Valley, and we have to have the cleanest city, believe me. But it's just a matter of pride. And what we're trying to do is not find how many people we can cite, but find how many neighbor and neighbors can get together and help people out, fix the problem, so.
So Mayor, where you want to go with this? Because I think I've expressed my opinion. I think Christina's expressed
Here's
hers.
what I'm
If
gonna
we're
do.
not voting on it, I think we ought to decide
There's
what's the
nothing
instruction
about-
to staff and.
Yeah, there's nothing on it. Here's what I'm gonna do. I think this will be an iterative process, and I don't think at the next council meeting, we're gonna solve it and vote on it, and boom, it's in code. I'm gonna come up with here's what different cities did. And when we did the accessory dwelling unit thing, I mean, we did a similar thing. We had some that was strong, weak, moderate, but what I'll do is take subcategories, like I said before, and I'll say, here's how enforcement works and here's how North Logan does it. Here's how Smithfield does it. Here's how. And then it's a menu. You pick from it. The council says, I like what Highland does. Does that make sense? I like the way they handle it. Let's go down that path. And then the next time I've got a version of the code that's included that part of what Hiram does. Or I like what Hiram does, but I think, we ought to do this a little bit. Fine. I mean, I'll
I
take
think
notes.
you should do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
No, I mean, that's the way it's gonna work. I mean, to hand it off to the staff,
I will reach out to others.
it'll be between Ryan and I to craft this whole thing.
And I'll see, most of those you've mentioned, I'll see how some of them do it without police forces. Those you've mentioned, North Logan, Smithfield, Logan, they all have police forces. Hiram doesn't, so I can reach out to Ron. I can reach out statewide to see how they accomplish those with a subcontracted force, because that would be, that I will do my research on. So.
All right, let's move on. Okay, we have staff reports. Staff reports. Rob, why not? Thank you, Gordon.
Downtown's a war zone, I know it.
That's all right. Hey, people are happy.
I haven't had many complaints about the war zone, and people are very patient, especially,
Because they see their roads getting fixed.
and there's a lot
Yeah,
of.
you can't complain that if they're getting fixed, if you
Yeah.
complain that
That they need it to be.
I have had a few complaints when it comes to the beat tour, non-beat tour, the road closed, the whole fact that downtown is off limits. But people have found their way through it. 4th and First East, you go-to roads, and most people understand that. However, things are moving along, not as fast as we would have liked. There's a lot of different reasons things have occurred and slowed down different aspects of this downtown war zone. But we are taking care of a lot of different infrastructure all at the same time. That's kind of what the overlap, the extra road closures have come into play because of the fact that we're doing so many storm drains, water lines, road work, and fiber optics all in the same place at the same time. And it's getting done. It's just we could use a couple more Italians down there to make things move faster for my liking, but in my opinion, Kilgore has not got enough manpower on site to handle the amount of work that they bid off for this project. It's a big project, and the water aspect is the first item, the deepest utility related to this project, and that part's moving slower than anticipated originally by them, and it hasn't progressed very fast, and that's slowing down the road crews. But it does have a light at the end of the tunnel, because I keep being assured that the asphalt will be down before snowflies. I'm skeptical about that. I've heard some different opinions amongst even their own staff, but I'm optimistic. In the end, we're gonna have a wonderful downtown.
I think people have seen, to Christina's point, they have seen the job that they did on First East next to the elementary school. And I think they, not only do they like that, if that's an example of what the street's gonna look like on their street.
I think
They're willing to be patient.
Well, and Spring Creek Road, Spring Creek. Wow. So nice.
Except at 3:05 p.m.
I believe there's a temperature issue with laying asphalt down. What is that temperature? I'm just kind of wondering, when do we typically expect that things would have to be done?
Well, a lot of it comes down to snow and temperatures, and so
Oh, so-
When the fall and winter starts rolling in, because I've seen the asphalt batch plants still open on Thanksgiving,
Oh, okay. That's my question.
that's
Is it when it
rare.
comes to,
but it could go that long if the weather holds out.
is it more a function of temperature or snow? Is what I'm wondering. Temperature. Okay.
You can pave with snow.
You can't pave when it's snow.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Yeah, you can pave when it snows as long
that. That's
as,
the problem is everyone's been praying for snow. So.
but
get ready
yeah.
for
As long as
Really, we
it
need it.
snows lightly and it gets cold afterwards.
yeah,
Pray for snow after Thanksgiving.
Or just rain.
harder to pave with rain. Snow melts slowly and comes down slowly, but
But snow can get followed by cold temperature.
it sure can.
Fiber optics is finally getting a little, they got way ahead of themselves as well when it came to the shortage of supplies for pedestals. That's why you see a whole lot of conduit everywhere instead of boxes. Boxes finally arrived, a whole bunch I heard, and I did see a whole bunch get put in the last couple of days. So I'm hoping that they're backtracking, like they're telling me that's their plan for the next few days. Catch up a lot of these loose ends that they've left behind themselves. So we should see an improvement related to fiber optic conduits.
I've seen how big is, you call it a pedestal? How large I mean, I've seen the cables going around. How large is the pedestal? Is it, can I expect them as big as a power box or these small little cables?
There's 4 different variations depending on what's going into that location. But typically you'll see a lot of underground handholds is what they're called. And they're kind of like a 2 by 3 foot underground flush with the
Oh, okay.
final grade. But that handhole has what looks kind of like a telephone pedestal, about a 6 by 6 or 8 by 8 green box. But our pedestals, fiber optic pedestals, will be shorter in height than
Okay. I'm just wondering if there'll be an eyesore. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not horrible looking. Any pedestal's not great to look at it. It's
Right past my house, we got one on the west side of the road.
What do you think about it?
Go to fiber optics and take what they give you.
It's good enough for him. It's good enough for me.
great.
What are we gonna do about it?
Oh, come on. You complain either way, you know, like.
Even fixed that trough in the road with cars, so I'm good.
They're catching up on the mastic and the flowable fill as well. So, reservoir project, it's behind, but they haven't delayed it again, so it's still in the same behind status that it was before. They pretty well got all of their forms and everything up inside the tank ready for chapter 4. Just waiting on that 4 date. Remember what that plan was?
It was within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I
So
think within a week or 2 we should have
yeah,
a lid put on.
So they putting the whole thing on in one board.
Correct.
Are they gonna make it to their September 30th noise ordinance adjustment?
no, they'll be after September 30th. I think they'll be in the couple weeks in November.
Well, for the 4, they'll be before November.
Oh, right, the lid. You're right. The lid they might, but the building they won't.
Clean up and building the fence because they're getting pushed into November. Some of the vegetation, cleanup of the site, fencing it and whatnot, may end up getting pushed into April. Somewhere wherever spring allows the snow to clean up the site and be pushing everything into November, but we are being told that hoping that all startup stuff, trial runs and things will happen the first 2 weeks of November.
On that noise ordinance, did we as a council make an adjustment on the ordinance to allow that to happen?
Gave them an exception. Gave them some exceptions.
If we're not gonna make that date,
We'll have to go back and check to see on that date.
Remember the date that we had?
I know that we'd given them a certain number of times.
I thought it was a number of instances.
Yeah, that's what I was remembering was the number of instances that they needed. Yeah.
I'd like to see.
I think you're right. It's just the quantity of allowance is not necessarily what the end date.
Anytime.
That was my understanding.
There's a whole bunch of developments going on too that are tearing up other corners of the town. they're all having their struggles, but Shoreline, his office, Parkway, that all got pulverized and removed, and it's been totally regraded now, and it's ready for asphalt. I believe their plan is middle of next week. That road back up Spring Creek Parkway. However, they're still a week or 3 out on being able to pave their subdivision inside of Apollo's phase 2.
I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know who's in charge of April. And I know she does stormwater, right? Mostly for contractors, subdivisions, etc. However, there's a real problem on where Foothill and Grandview. Yeah,
So we're working on that.
We fill you in, but that
it's
email,
over and over and over again.
Penny goes out and sweeps it every.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's the Finley's daughter's home. All of her dirt goes into the 3 neighbors down below their driveways every time it
not the
rains
same
or
email.
full of
I can
mud.
transfer it.
And it's her job to keep her dirt on her own property, but they don't do anything about it. And then they're out there with a hose the other day, spraying their driveway off right into the neighbor's driveway full of mud again. So I'm hoping we're
So
paying
it is a
attention.
code compliance issue, and we handle those in a way that's kind of systematic when it comes to emails and written letters and things like that. And they give kind of a warning for the power horse of the deputy shows up. And they were just given a very stern email 2 days ago, I think, or maybe it was yesterday.
Are they replying that they got it and they're gonna put the silt fence up, or what are they doing?
The email wasn't vague. I understood what they needed to do, and I would assume they got that email. So I'm optimistic that they're going to take care of
I
that
hope
problem.
so.
If they don't respond, they'll get a follow-up and it'll have a time limit on them. And that is one area that is specific in how we have to do it. And sometimes it actually ties our hands because the stormwater code actually does. It was a requirement to make it a step, the way the EPA guidelines are. And so we are actively going through the steps, trying to get that resolved.
Yeah, April does have quite a few hats, and so code compliance, any of her 3 main hats. She got
Well,
zoning.
because it had been, we've complained to April lots of times about that, and we're just getting told, I mostly just work with the contractor part of it, so it's happened for the whole year, and we're just barely getting around to getting it addressed, I think. So it's been brought to April's attention, I know, a few times.
A little morning glory could be like help retain that soil.
Maybe a few weeks.
Transplant it from our roundabouts to her lot.
Maybe that needs to be
Some starts, yeah, some morning glory starts.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Any other questions? That's all I have for you.
Thanks, Rob. Scarlett?
Yeah, we are dealing with mud in the streets and gravel in the streets.
We're glad it rained.
We are glad it rains, but it does create its own headaches, especially after a drought, because then a lot of places that normally have decent ground cover then don't because of the drought, and down it all comes. So we are working on that. Recreation wise, we've got our flag football program going. Reminder that Saturday is the Bleach Blonde concert in the park, 6:30. The pipeline reminder will go out on that on Friday to help people remember to come the next day. We also, Rocky Mountain Baseball has started up, so you'll see them. South Cache Soccer has started up, so you'll see them enjoying our fields. We are working on the car show. We've got some sponsors and some neat prizes and stuff. The car show, those people don't ever sign up very far in advance, so we just keep our fingers crossed. That's kind of like the party that you get ready to throw and hope that people come. And generally, they've been great supporters. And so keep your fingers crossed for good weather on October 9th. Chad and his band are excited to come up and play, so we're working on that. And then we're starting to think about the Christmas tree lighting in December. So those things are on the recreation plate. Land use wise, we're busy. We do have several developments. The water master plan's actually given us a bit of a reprieve on some of the big ones because we're asking them to be patient with us on that. But there's quite a few people that want to build, and it's amazing how quickly lots go and people come in for building. So busy world for you, Christina, out there. I do have, as you're out kind of looking at the weeds, or not the weeds, but the nuisances, you'll see the weeds, but as you're out kind of looking at the nuisances to think of definitions and stuff and tidying it up, pay attention to retaining walls. We had a meeting this afternoon, and there's a cool new way, well, it's not new, but it's getting more popular in our area to have side entry garages. And I think people they don't know, actually, I think is what it is. They're not looking at the ordinance well enough. It's pretty clearly defined if you look at it, but they are trying to build up driveways and things so they can have side entry into the garage, and they're running into setback problems because the way our retaining wall ordinance is written. So just look at some of the retaining walls.
Is our ordinance good, or do we need to look at it?
That's
like, yes, we need to look at it.
That's why we're asking you to kind of pay a bit of attention to it, because I think we're going to have people that ask us to look at it.
Well, and I think they're trying to get more of a flat driveway.
They are,
which makes sense. I don't know.
So one of the things that's tricky about it is we have a 10-foot side yard setback in most cases, and if they want a retaining wall, if the retaining wall is less than 3 feet, that's okay. It can go in the setback without much worry. Or if it's 3 to 6, we can talk about it, and usually it can go in the setback. But the deal killer is the finished side has to be toward the property. And if you're trying to hold up your driveway, or excuse me, the unfinished side, if you're trying to hold up your driveway, the unfinished side is going to go towards the neighbors. And so that was the thought process a while ago, and we need you to think about that and see if that's still the thought process that you want. We have to think of the neighbor that's on the downhill side looking at an 8 or 9 foot concrete wall versus the neighbor on the uphill side that has their driveway and looks really cool.
You gotta look at North Logan cities,
Okay.
not North Salt Lake.
North Salt Lake.
Yeah, they've got a lot of that up there.
Okay.
Lots and lots of retaining walls. I'm curious to see what their
Okay.
ordinance says. It might be worth looking into.
Thank you. Anyway, just kind of keep your eyes out and think, oh, that's a good idea, or now I can see why we've got that in the ordinance, or yeah, we can live with that. Because then ultimately, if we do decide we want to make changes, it's a land use, so it'll go through planning commission and public hearing, but it will come to you to decide. And when push comes to shove on a lot of the stuff, even though we as staff try and enforce and we try to utilize the justice court, the deputies and the justice court to do a lot of stuff, because then it kind of keeps the council in the position where you can make the laws and you don't have to get caught in the middle between enforcing the laws or being the heavy hand of the laws that you've made. But sometimes we have people that take I want to change the ordinance route. So then they come to the council, and that's tricky when they start coming and asking Christina, I think you were on the council with the Clearview ordinance that we went through all kinds of stuff. And so that's the other hard part about enforcing is it's a little bit harder to get state code changed than it is to come and talk to your neighbors that are sitting on the city council. So which is a big key in being able to be consistent with the enforcement, even with the sheriff's department. We need that support. So, and we've been able to get it, and I appreciate all of the support that the council gives us, but it is tricky when the neighbors are going to come and talk to you about changing ordinance. But this retaining wall one, just kind of think about retaining walls and do some looking as you drive around and see what you think about them being close to the road or close to the property lines, because that's kind of what we're dealing with when it comes to hillsides and setback issues.
Do you have any examples we could maybe look at, or where that was done?
I wouldn't look at them in Providence because we don't have any to look at.
Okay, we don't.
I mean, you could look at Smith's.
We have a few. We can get you, I'll see if
Maybe
we
just
can get
a
a list.
few.
Okay.
Do it on a Friday night
But you
drive.
could also probably go into North Logan and see. They're up on the bench in North Logan. There's also a fair amount. But where I'm saying is North Salt Lake, there's everywhere. Because once people are starting to build on these hills, I mean, they've got to retain. So anyway, yeah, it can be done in a pleasing, it can look good. It can also look like junk. So, yeah.
So they can also set them back to on the back of the property so they can file the ordinance.
Right. There's all kinds of options. But anyway, just something as you're out and about. And we are supposed to be getting some information from some different contractors and folks of where they feel like we may have some problem areas. And so we'll look into those, but I'll have you look at them too and see what you think as far as problem areas. So you may not think it's a problem at all. But we may need to revise that one. It's one that's worth looking at with all the hillside building we're doing now. Not that we didn't do a lot up where you live, Janelle, but the new creative designs with houses and they're not just for landscaping features anymore now. They're using them for structural. So, but anyway, unless you have questions, that's all I have. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Tyler?
As always, not too much election news. As I mentioned, we do have our voter information pamphlet that we've completed. We've got one argument for, one argument against, and each other's rebuttals. That should be going out hopefully in a couple of weeks, probably first part of October. We are still looking at a date to do the meet the candidates. We're thinking the week of the 11th. I've contacted the locals to see if they have a date available, but they haven't got back to me yet. I have verified with our Lieutenant Governor's office, all our candidates do have their candidate profiles on the vote.utah.gov. That should be listed in the next week or so, and I'll have that on our website so residents can go check out their profiles and stuff like that. And it sounds like all the annexation was approved.
They decided to not take any action on it at all.
Okay.
And so that means it's approved. There is one little technicality in that when we first started it, the city boundaries.
Sorry, she's not on a
were
mic, so we're.
place.
Sorry, I just have to be the heavy here.
I have to remind everybody when I'm sitting up there, so. Kathleen Alder. They decided not to take any action, but we do have to make a correction because when we first started the process, the city boundaries were different than they are now. And so we annexed that piece over there that's on 3rd South. And it doesn't show that on our plat map. So we just have to have that changed, but it should go to the governor to come in, so. We're good.
Yeah, so if I get that, I'll send it to the governor's office and get that recorded. That's all I have. Any questions?
The voter information pamphlet, you said it will go out in a couple weeks. Do you have printed copies now?
Yes, but they are not available to the public.
Are they available for city councilmen?
I will
Okay.
check. I can check and see. I've given one to the mayor, so I would assume it'd be okay for you guys. It's
I think so.
finalized, but I mean, but yeah, I can definitely look over now.
Because I'd like to make photocopies of it.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I just wanted to say.
So technically, it can't go until September 20th. That's the first date. And
I'm happy to look at it in the office here too.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
yeah, but yeah, absolutely.
Special
Yeah.
collections. If you will.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Right.
I would report that our city treasurer has given her notice and she'll be done by the end of this week. We're working on that replacement, and we hope to finish up interviews this week. I'm interviewing with Diane with our human resource. And then I'll probably send you out that electronically for a support for that one, so that we can get somebody going. But it takes some time. It takes some time to replace a staff member. So we appreciate what she's done, and she'll move on to something that she will want better, I suppose. We have started our water master plan, and so we've turned that over. We've had our first meeting with our contractor, started to download data to them so that they can get stuff going. The nice thing about having a lot of GIS data and having somebody that has helped keep that up is when we give a data dump to our engineer, we have a lot of data to give. And so that has been very helpful and will speed along the process quite a bit. But at this point, it is holding up some developments. The engineer's aware of that. Our contract engineer on our water master plan is aware of that. So, but anyway, it is starting, it is progressing. When it's ready, we'll bring it back to you for feedback. And so anyway, that's progressing. Another one, we are progressing on fiber. The Governor's Office of Planning and Budget just closed today a local assistance match grant. So we applied for $295,000 of additional funds for helping to put in our fiber. So we won't know when that'll be, but that'll be for phase 3 or zone 3 of our project. So anyway, it will come in time. Anyway, there's lots of things that are going on. Some of the staff have already talked about quite a few of our items. Know that we're busy. We're trying to do your work, the work that you've given us, and we're trying to accomplish that. So anyway, if there's questions, I'm happy to answer that.
The water master plan schedule.
Yeah, we met with them a week or two ago to try. We knew that they wouldn't start till the 1st of September. We knew that when they bid it. So anyway, it's early in the process, but it'll take into January, February for it to finish. So long time. Anyway. I do have one item of a closed session for you when we're done.
One item, what?
One item of a closed session. It would be land negotiation. So when we're done. Any other questions? Okay, next one. Council report.
Here, can I add one quick one? We also have a resignation on some of our streets. So that will be out in the application status once again as well.
Which one?
Town. Town's been with us maybe not quite a year, but he's gonna go back to school apparently. So we've got another opening. So if you know anybody, or spread the word.
The only comment I had, and kind of just for Kathleen to be thinking about and the rest of the council for next year, in case I'm not here. Cities, the concerts in the park, I was just hoping that we would remember to schedule those out at the end of this year so that we could reserve the parks. So just be thinking if that's something we want to do, because that was a little tricky. And that way we could just go out to the different bands and say, these are the dates we have available. We have these, but maybe be deciding or thinking about what we want to do. If it worked well, if we want to keep doing it, I don't know. But I think it needs to be addressed before the end of the year. That's all. The rest, I've said too much tonight.
The thing I have is, Spring Creek Water Board will be meeting next Tuesday night with the approval of the state engineer. We're going to start now taking and working on the items that was part of the agreement and see if we can start working with those. We're going to meet with Ryan, and Ryan's on our board, but we're going to start talking about those and what can happen.
A few things. I attended the National Day of Service at our cemetery and helped clean up there, and that was very well attended. I felt like there's a lot of members of the community that came out. It's a good project. I had a library board meeting for last. They're looking to find ways to consider a countywide library system. So some of the county board members are working on some details of that. The library director, Brennan, decided that, well, she gave it to the board to vote on having the maintenance done by the library staff, the cleaning. They felt like having a public restroom cleaned once a week was probably substandard, and a few other cleaning issues. And so they decided to take that on. And so I kind of passed that on to Shane and Ryan to coordinate them on what other equipment they might need, because they don't own a vacuum. They're working on that. So. Safe routes to school. I've talked to a few principals. It's a little tricky because for the grant that's available, those need updated by the 8th of October, which most of those committees don't meet until the end of this month. But they're a little concerned about the chicken and egg problem, about putting things on the plan that don't actually exist, even though that would be the preferred route to school. So I think you're from Principal Keck.
I was with Principal Keck today, and I believe they're scheduled for next week. So, and we're going to work on seeing if we can't get that side done. And I should report, I did contact the county for their assistance on some of the sidewalk area. That would be related to both River Heights, CCID, and Providence, if it's along a county road. And I've reached out to the trails coordinator for the county for assistance as well. So anyway, trying to get that one ready.
We'll keep working on that. Hopefully we can. I told them it's a little tricky. I didn't know, are you out of town more? You have a city managers conference before the Utah?
I have a conference before. It's the Utah Government Financial Officers Association conference. So yes, but I'm out that whole week.
So availability is a little tricky to kind of get this kind of.
Well, I've scheduled with Providence, and I'd be happy to meet with any of the other schools that would like to meet.
I was also contacted by the project coordinator for Just Serve, and they were interested in having projects put up there, weaving the roundabout. I jotted that down as an option. But if there are projects that can be handed over to volunteer groups, we'd be certainly interested in posting some of those out to the volunteer board to get some people doing some projects. I know we had some youth groups help with some curb painting and litter cleanup this last month. So if you have people in your area that are looking for service projects, we can try to brainstorm some things together there.
Can we put that draft up?
Sure. About the website. The project coordinators said they were also happy to put volunteer needs for city events. You need people to help set up, concerts in the park, or set up or take down signs, or anything like that that the city feels like is something that would be beneficial. Just to have extra manpower to
really
do.
go to that website. I go there all the time to look for projects or things, not necessarily go do them after I look at them, but
People know to go there and look, you know, if you have a family and you just want to get your kids out doing something, they'll go there and look for projects.
So if you think of any ideas of things we can add there. That'd be good. And then just something that was brought up tonight, I think it might be worthwhile to have the planning commission look at that mixed residential adjustments for the LCR. Probably better timing now than it was at the onslaught of the pandemic. That's all I got.
Josh?
Oh, you want to do me next? Here, you passed here.
No.
No, she always gets the last word. I get it. Yeah. That's right. Just a couple things. Ryan and I met a few weeks ago regarding branding in the city and maybe a logo change there. I haven't gotten back with him because we're actually rebranding our company and I've been really occupied with that. But I think we're actually maybe exploring that and kind of to describe what that might look like. I think probably more to come as I work with him and just putting out some ideas of how we might do some rebranding with the city. Carrie recruited me earlier today to go ahead and do donuts and concerts in the park on Friday. We're just gonna do them for free. Saturday. I'm gonna be there on Friday. We're gonna do them. We're just gonna do them for free, so people can come and get free donuts. City will just cover the cost of the ingredients, I guess. Easy enough.
And if any city council members want to come and serve them.
Yeah, you're my sidekick that night.
Yeah.
And you have to wear a uniform.
Yeah,
So.
it'll be fun.
A uniform.
Well, I don't know, like
A
a hot dog
baker's
on a
hat.
stick, type thing.
Are you providing it? Are you gonna cook it?
Oh yeah, my kids have a little donut shop, so we'll bring
They're
that.
so good. So they're
Yeah.
just like little minis. So they'll be warm and.
They're
just
like
serve
fat
They
free,
melt in your mouth.
eat like a dozen of
them. They're so good.
them. And then just as you said cleanup, I was reminded, it's been a while. It's been about a year since we did Providence Canyon cleanup. I don't know if we did one this spring. And fall's maybe a good time. I know, Carrie, you
I
kind of
was
kicked that.
thinking someone
You
else.
kicked that off, and I think I told you that I probably have enough foot traffic and I probably should. So is there interest in maybe getting one going in October before it gets cold and trying to clean up what has occurred the last year?
It was so easy to reach out to the state presidents and invite the youth groups. Like they just jumped right on board.
It's because the state presidents like you. Yeah, but I could try.
They would like you too.
Yeah. Pat, is there interest in that? And we're trying to get
Yeah,
one
I
going in
think that's
October.
great. I think that's something we could put as a recurring, monthly thing.
I think we just need to plan on that.
Every
There's
fall.
probably some trash up there. Okay, so I'll take that one on. Reach out to state presidents. That's it for me.
Yeah, I may have reported this in part last month. I'm not sure, but we've got our new youth council. We'll meet with them this Friday and kind of plan out the year. I have a couple of new advisors. Ashley Fisher has agreed to work with the youth council and kind of head up the Easter egg hunt. And so since the youth support that, she'll use the youth as her committee and she'll head that up. And then Katie Gerke said she'd also help with the youth council and help coordinate between the city and the youth council with the Christmas celebration. So she'll kind of work with the staff on that. So we're glad to start that and have extra help this year. And then Amy and Scott Billings have been amazing at helping with the parades, and the youth have been representing. We did the Apple Days and it was fun. And we're going to be in the Ridgeline Homecoming Parade in the next week or whenever it is. But we're representing. So that's it.
I just have one thing. I'll get my head into this thing on the nuisance ordinance. It's a lot of work. You really do a good job. So the next couple of weeks, that's what I'll have my head into. So, and I'll be sharing what I have before the next council meeting. Okay. That's it. Ryan, you have a, okay. Need a motion to go into executive session. Motion from Council Member Seeley. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Second from Council Member Smith. All in favor of executive session?
Say
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye.